What's going on, guys? This is another episode here in Nolan's Pod. Western Conference Finals started yesterday. I did not give a prediction for this OKC Minnesota series because I think it could go either way. I also think that I don't think, but I know I like SGA and I like Ant-Man, so I don't care who wins between these young thoroughbreds. But I will tell you guys that after watching Game 1, Minnesota has some fight on their hands. It was 50-50. A lot of people picked OKC. A lot of people have picked Minnesota, but watching Game 1, Minnesota definitely does have a fight on their hands. What I would tell you guys is it's no panic from Minnesota, though. From watching Ant-Man talk last night, it's no panic. He had the days off, and we know in the second round when they had the days off, they lost Game 1 against the Warriors. They had the days off. They lost Game 1 last night against OKC. Ant-Man just said that they're going to come back better. They're going to correct some stuff, look at film, of course, and they're going to be better prepared and not better prepared, but ready for what OKC has to bring because, OKC is going to bring it again. Minnesota is still in a good situation. Obviously, if you get a split, and you go back home with a split, that's doing you some good. Minnesota played really well in the first half, man. Like, they not really well, but they played okay, The score at halftime was 48-44. So Julius Randle carried Minnesota in that first half. Ant-Man didn't really do much. Julius Randle carried Minnesota in that first half, and when they needed Ant-Man to carry them in the second half, because Julius Randle had 20 points in the first half, he couldn't miss. In the second half, he only had 8 points. So he carried them in the first half of Julius Randle. In the second half, when they needed Ant-Man, Ant-Man just couldn't come through. Why Ant-Man couldn't come through? Ant-Man was not able to play one-on-one last night. If you go back and you watch film and you go back and you look at the game, Ant-Man was not able to play one-on-one like he likes. They had somebody on him. They had somebody in the paint in case he wanted to get to the basket. And then when you got Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein in the paint, in case Ant-Man wants to get in the paint, that was a no-fly zone. And then when you had Dort, Caruso, and Case and Wallace guarding you on the perimeter, it was nothing much that Ant-Man can do. Ant-Man needs help, but Ant-Man has to be the guy. And what I mean by that, Julius Randle was the guy last night in the first half. Ant-Man just only had 18 points on 5 for 13 shooting. One thing that Ant-Man said last night is, I got to take more. He got to take more shots. That's what Ant-Man said last night. He's like, I only took 13 shots. I got to take more shots. Of course. No disagreement right there. That's just like Jimmy Butler playing without Stephen Curry. Jimmy Butler, you got to take more than the shots that he took in that series, last series, And Jimmy Butler, he wasn't looking to shoot. But the difference between Jimmy Butler and Ant-Man is always looking to shoot. Trust me. He's always looking to shoot. It's just that OKC's good defense, man. OKC defensively, they are a juggernaut. We know this. And they really bothered Ant-Man. And they made an adjustment on Julius Randle, too. Julius Randle killed him in the first half. They made an adjustment on him. At times, you've seen Alex Caruso on Julius Randle. That's no shocker. That's not a mismatch. If you are a casual fan of the NBA or basketball, period, you would say, oh, that's a mismatch between Julius Randle and Alex Caruso guarding Julius Randle. Caruso guarded Joker in Game 7. Caruso's like 6'4". Joker's almost about 7 feet. And he bothered Joker and made life a living hell for Joker. So he did the same thing to Julius Randle, but they made an adjustment on Julius Randle in the second half. He only had 8 points in the second half, and he had 20 in the first half. He couldn't miss. The other thing that Minnesota was missing, when Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the cousin of SGA, obviously we know that, Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid. Dante DiVincenzo had 9 points off the bench, 2 assists, 1 rebound, 3 for 14 from the field, and 3 for 12 for 3 for Dante DiVincenzo. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 3 from 11 from the field, 2 for 9 for 3. Naz Reid, 4 points, 4 assists, 8 rebounds, 1 from 11 from the field, and 0 for 7 from 3. Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, as you know, are the 3 most important bench players that there probably is in the NBA as a whole. They are the 3 key bench players on Minnesota Timberwolves bench. And when those guys play well, and you got Julius Randle and Ant-Man and Jaden McDaniels and Mike Conley playing well, excuse me, when those 3 guys off the bench are playing well, and those other guys are playing well, Minnesota's unbeatable. You're not going to beat Minnesota on the many nights that Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid chip in. It's hard to beat them. All 3 of those guys struggled to shoot last night. They struggled. It wasn't their night. Obviously, we know that role players play better at home, and role players don't play well on the road. That's a fact. Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid, they have to be better for game 2. If Minnesota wants to go back home and tie up this series 1-1, Nickeil, Naz, and Dante have to be better. Minnesota expects a lot from them off the bench, and they usually give Minnesota that. Last night, they just didn't have it. And you also have to credit OKC's great defense. Again, Dante DiVincenzo had a lot of good looks from 3. It just wouldn't go down. It just wasn't his night. But it's also Dante DiVincenzo, where you see that your 3 ball's not going to get to the basket, get to the free throw line, see the ball go through the basket, and that will open up your jump shot game. That'll open up your 3-point game. And then Naz Reid, just a non-factor. No, he didn't hit any threes. We know Naz Reid's good for about 4 threes a game at least. He didn't hit any. Same with Dante DiVincenzo. He only hit 3. He was 3 for 12. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's good for like 3 or 4 a game. He only hit 2 out of 9. The other problem is Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley Jr., the 2 veterans with Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert, and Jaden McDaniels. Rudy Gobert only had 2 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Mike Conley only had 7 points, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds, 2 for 8 from the field, and 1 for 5 for 3 for Mike Conley. Jaden McDaniels, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 for 5 from the field, 1 for 3 for 3. If Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, and Jaden McDaniels, if they're not going to play well and help the other 2 starters, and Ant-Man and Julius Randle, if those 3 guys are not going to play well, the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have a chance. They can get swept if those guys don't play well. Those 3 guys that I just mentioned. Those are the other 3 guys that have to play well. If they're not going to play well, Minnesota doesn't have a shot in this series. Point blank, period. It's just not going to happen. Jaden McDaniels fouled out last night. Obviously, you know, it's no secret. You see it right there. He had to guard SGA. Of course, SGA is going to make whoever defensive a living hell. And in the first few minutes of the game, Minnesota they just were fouling the crap out of SGA. And he was just getting to the free throw line at will, in the first few minutes of that game, if you go back and watch the first quarter. After the first few minutes of the game and the first timeout happened, the Minnesota Timberwolves did a better job on SGA, and stopped fouling SGA rather. After that first timeout, they stopped fouling him, and SGA struggled. SGA at halftime was only like 2 for 10 from the field with 9 points. At halftime, he was only like 2 for 10 from the field and only had like 9 points. All his points were coming from the free throw line, really. He only had like 11 points at halftime. And he was struggling. And the score was 48-44. Minnesota led. Minnesota played good defense in the first half. SGA didn't have it going in the first half. And then we were looking like, where's J-Dub? Where's Chet Holmgren? They were non-existent too. And it was like, and I was telling my dad, I'm like, SGA struggled in the first half. He needs help. And if J-Dub is not going to be that second option, is Chet Holmgren not going to be that third option, Minnesota to get this game. But then the second half happened. SGA scored 20 points in the third quarter. They started fouling SGA again. J-Dub woke up a little bit. Chet Holmgren got going a little bit. And then OKC's great defense. OKC only allowed 44 at halftime. That's good. It's just it didn't seem like it was good because they were down 4 points and SGA didn't have it going. They were struggling offensively. But they turned up their defense a little bit more in the second half. That only allowed Julius Randle to have only 8 points in the second half. Ant-Man only had 18 points on 5 for 13 shooting, 3 for 8 from 3. They turned it up a notch again on defense second half. Cason Wallace, Caruso, Dort, they got after it defensively. They made Mike Conley's life a living hell. They made Ant-Man's life a living hell. Dante DiVincenzo, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, they didn't have good games. And then in the paint, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, they bothered Naz Reid, and they bothered Rudy Gobert, and they bothered Julius Randle in the second half. Those bigs for OKC on the interior, they bothered those guys from Minnesota on the interior. OKC is so well-rounded defensively with the perimeter defense, and then you have those 2 7-footers that's in the paint that's going to clog it up. Rudy Gobert actually did not have a bad game defensively. You didn't see OKC get a lot in the paint when Rudy Gobert was in the game guarding the paint. But when he went out in favor of Naz Reid, they got anything they wanted to, of course, because Naz Reid's not a great defender. The other thing that concerned me about Minnesota in this game and overall in the postseason period, Minnesota's turnovers. Minnesota had 19 turnovers to OKC's 15. OKC had 13 steals to Minnesota's 5. If you're going to turn the ball over Minnesota, you're not going to have a chance. If you're going to allow OKC to be disruptive and get all these steals, and they had 13, you're not going to have a chance. OKC had 12 fast break points. Minnesota didn't have any fast break points. Obviously, OKC does not like to shoot that many threes. They don't really like to shoot the 3 ball. OKC had 54 points in the paint to Minnesota's 20. OKC was out. Well, Minnesota was out rebounding 46-42. The OKC shot 50% from the field to Minnesota's 34% from the field. OKC was 11 for 21 from 3. That's 52%. Or excuse me, 50%. My bad. Minnesota 15 of 51 for 3-point range. That's 29%. Not good. And I joked with my dad last night. And I'm like, OKC is going to go up. Or I joked with him and I said, OKC is up by 20. And I was just joking. And he was like, well, son, I don't think that's going to happen, really, And I was like, I was just joking. I wasn't being serious. But he like, at the end, when it did happen, he like, well, you did talk that up. But OKC has had a thing of doing that all year long, just being up by 20 and being up by 30. And even though I told my dad that before the game, I was just joking, just being funny, And he's just like, well, son, I don't think that's going to happen. But, at the end of the game, he like, you did say it. You did talk it up. You was joking. OKC's largest lead in this game was 26 to Minnesota's largest lead was 9. So, 26-point lead. Minnesota, the downgrading thing about this is Minnesota had OKC. You think you got OKC right where you want them. And they had them. They played it. Minnesota played an okay first half. Not great, but okay. It was 48-44 Minnesota. And they're going to have time. Like, we up 4 on the road against this OKC team. We got them right where we want them. And then, boom. The second half happens. And SGA turns into Michael Jordan, and he goes for 20 in the third quarter. And it's like he was just struggling in the first half. We had him contained. We stopped fouling him. And then here he goes in that third quarter. He goes for 20. And next thing you know, OKC's up on a 10-0 run. And OKC goes on one of those OKC Thunder runs. It's like the old Golden State Warriors. You think you got them right where you want them in the first half. Then that third quarter, that Warriors run happens. It happened all the time with the Splash Brothers. And when they added KD especially, they go on one of those third quarter runs, and by the time the fourth quarter comes, game's over. That's what OKC did last night. They were down 4 at half. Third quarter happened. They made some adjustments, and they also got Minnesota to take bad shots. Minnesota took some really bad shots in that second half, and that played right into OKC's game plan. Make these guys take bad shots. Make these guys take shots they're not comfortable with taking. That's what OKC did to Minnesota, and that's why OKC's defense is so spectacular. They made Minnesota take bad shots in the second half. And if you're going to try to play iso ball, Ant-Man and Julius Randle, if you're going to try to play iso ball against this OKC defense, it's not going to happen because they're going to have those 2 7-footers in the interior, and then they're going to have those perimeter defenders in Caruso, SGA, Casey Wallace, and Dort. They're going to have those 4 guys guarding you on the perimeter. So you want to play iso ball in this series against OKC, good luck. Ant-Man tried it. It didn't work. Julius Randle didn't have a successful second half once they locked in on him. Game 2, you cannot turn the ball over, Minnesota. You can't allow them to get steals. In Minnesota, even though you might have a little lead at the halftime, don't get comfortable in the third quarter or the second half. Don't get comfortable. You still have to play a whole nother half. All Minnesota did last night, they played 1 half. They didn't play 2 halves. They played 1 half. That was the first half. Second half, you knew the game was over when OKC went on that 10-0 run. So, and then you have to get something for the 3 guys off the bench, Minnesota. Also, you got to get something from the starters in Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, and Mike Conley. You got to get something from them too, not just Julius Randle. Ant-Man, Michael Jordan-esque, you have to play better. He knows he has to play better. I'm not going to be hard on Ant-Man today because we know what that dude is capable of doing. We know what that dude is capable of doing. We know that he can go off at any moment. We know that he's going to have a better game 2 than he did game 1. We know he's going to look at film and figure it out. We know Minnesota's going to figure it out. I'm not panicking on Minnesota because, like I said, man, they had some days off. And in the second round, they had those days off. They had 5 days off, and they were rusty. And they lost game 1 against the Warriors. And when Stephen Curry got hurt game 1 and Minnesota still lost, we were concerned. And they ended up winning 4 straight after game 1. So I'm not concerned. Do they have to play better? Of course. Panic button? No. Just try and get a split and go back home. As I told you guys, I don't care who wins this series. OKC was not spectacular. Like I was telling my dad also last night, I'm like, man, OKC, even though they won the game, they didn't play a great first half, and they only played an okay game. I'm sure they would say this. OKC would say the same thing to you guys that I'm saying. They didn't play a great game. It's just not like they had some spectacular game. Even though they built a 20-point lead, they didn't play a spectacular game. They just played okay. They played maybe a B+ type game, and they still were able to come away with a comfortable victory. That's the crushing part if you're Minnesota. And the guys off OKC's bench, these numbers are not going to thrill you or whatever. They're not outstanding, but it's something to be said, though. Kenrich Williams, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 for 3 from the field, 2 for 2 from downtown. Kenrich Williams matches up better in this series. He didn't play at all last series. He matches up better in this series, obviously. You know what Mark Dagnall did? J. Will did not play. J. Will matched up better in the last series when they played Denver. He does not match up well in this series with them playing Minnesota. If you stay ready, you won't have to get ready. Kendrick Williams, perfect example of that. Alex Caruso, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 3 for 4 from the field, and 3 for 3 from downtown for Alex Caruso. He chipped in with the points and 3 threes, and of course his great defense. Isaiah Joe, 7 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 3. Casey Wallace, 3 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 3. Dort, 5 points, 1 rebound, 2 for 4 from the field, 1 for 3 from downtown. Hartenstein, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 6 for 8 from the field. Obviously, Chet and J-Dub kind of got it going in the second half. Chet had 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 for 9 from the field, 1 for 1 from downtown. J-Dub, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 for 18 from the field, 1 for 2 for downtown for J-Dub. SGA, he struggled the first half. In the third quarter, he had 20 points in the third quarter. He was able to get to the free throw line a lot, of course. Of course, he's going to draw the fouls. SGA 31 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 10 for 27 from the field. No, not the SGA type game as far as efficiency. But when they needed him in the second half, he delivered. Score ended up being 114 to 88. What adjustments is Minnesota going to make? Bench guys have to play well, and those other 3 starters have to play well. Can't turn the ball over, and can't get the ball stolen from you. What I would say to OKC is Ant-Man is going to get going, and those bench players are going to start to play well. What are y'all going to do about that to keep them quiet? The series that I am picking is the Knicks and Pacers. I told y'all I didn't care about OKC in Minnesota because I like Ant-Man, I like SGA, and I like both of their teams. I like both of those young boys. And one of them is going to have a chance at that first NBA championship. So obviously, unfortunately, one's going to have to lose and one's going to have to win. But I didn't care who wins the series. The Knicks and Indiana, please, Indiana, please, 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 please. Please win this series, Indiana, please. Win the series. That's all I got for you guys today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how you think that this Knicks series is going to go. Let me know what you think about Game 1 of OKC Minnesota, and we're out of here.